Hi everyone, my name is Eric, and I'm the inventor of this thing that I'm sitting on, which is the Lumite Gear hammock stand. This is the world's lightest hammock stand at about 3 pounds even, or roughly 1,400 grams. It has a maximum recommended user weight of 250 pounds and an actual yield strength of over 500 pounds. It packs down to a volume of roughly 6 liters and 21.5 inches long. And while it may look complicated, once you're used to the process, it can be set up in just a couple of minutes, since there are only 4 points of adjustment on the whole thing and there are no knots to tie. Not only is it the world's lightest hammock stand, it's arguably the most versatile, since it can adapt to virtually any terrain, whether that is sloped, twisted, uneven, muddy, rocky, indoors, outdoors, you name it. And because of its small footprint, it can fit into many places that a more traditionally shaped hammock stand wouldn't. For example, this could be set up in a very small room with the ends of the arms utilizing the corners of that space, or believe it or not, it will fit through some doorways. To use a more extreme example, this could even be set up on a wide paddleboard or on the fishing platform of a bass boat. Speaking of versatility, not only is it adaptable to different terrain, but it can be adjusted to allow practically any hang angle. For example, during the day I could set up these arms to be nearly vertical, which would allow me to use my hammock as a chair, or even just put an actual hammock chair inside. Then when it gets dark, I could bring the arms down to a more horizontal position, which would allow me to sleep at whatever hang angle I wanted, whether that be the traditional 30 degrees, or if I had a wide hammock, maybe a deeper sag, like 40 degrees. The point being, you can set it up however you want. Because of its wide range of adjustability, it can also use up to a 12-foot gathered hammock, such as the one you see here. This is a 12-foot chameleon, and also will accept up to a 13-foot tarp. And luckily it doesn't need a custom tarp, which is great for those of you who have already invested in an expensive Dyneema shelter. It should also be able to use less common hammock designs, such as the Hammock Drummer or cross hammocks. Theoretically, I suspect it might even work with some flat-lay bridge hammocks, but as of yet I have not tested this because I didn't want to break this prototype before I made this video. I'd give this about a 50-50 chance of working, as bridge-style hammocks put a tremendous amount of strain on whatever they're attached to, but regardless, I'm going to test it and find out. Lastly, it's worth mentioning because I know people are going to ask, this will not work with a Haven hammock. The shape just isn't right to allow it. Maybe in the future, depending on demand, I could make a Haven-specific form factor, but for now I'm just going to focus on this one. So now that I've explained what this hammock stand can do, I'm going to show you how it sets up and packs down, and you'll get to see some of its features in action. A bit of a disclaimer, this is still a prototype, and while this form factor is very close to the final version, there are many visual blemishes and jury-rigged solutions as a result of my experimentation. So keep in mind that these do not represent the final product. One example is the exterior shock cords. These will be internal on the final version. There are many other examples, but suffice it to say, not everything you see here represents the eventual product. Okay, so as you can see here, we start with 3 components. There's the base section, and then there are the 2 arm sections. So what we're going to start with is just assembling the base section. So we're going to connect these tubes here. We're going to disconnect the legs. And then we get them spread out. Just double check that there's nothing weird, there's no tangles. Usually there won't be. And the base is ready to go. I'm going to adjust these a little bit just because I like these to be symmetrical, but that is not necessary. Next, I'm going to assemble one of the arm sections. I hope I'm in frame here. So basically I would just get all these cords unwrapped. You don't have to be particularly careful about how you do this. This will not tangle. Connect the tubes. And then I just get these cords pulled apart. There we go. Yeah, And so now I have these two cords separated from each other. That's all I needed to do. Then I simply take the spring button here, I push it into here. In the final version, I'd like these spring buttons to be a little easier to press. They're a little uncomfortable to use, especially if you don't have fingernails like me. Anyways, so there they are, they're put in there. Then we're gonna take this little string between the two tips of these mid supports. We're just gonna connect it. And now that arm is assembled. So for now, I'm just gonna set it up. So it's sort of lined up over here, and that's fine. Then I'm gonna grab my other arm section. Same thing, right? Just getting all the cords unwrapped. Connecting the tube sections. I'm getting these separated from each other. These usually don't tangle up like that, but of course, when I'm filming, they do. Yeah. So now I've got my two cords untwisted. And same thing as before, I'm just putting the spring button into that hole there, grabbing this other one, putting that spring button into that hole there, and I'm connecting the tips again of those two things. And now that arm is assembled. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side over here. We're just gonna kind of set it up, lined up, just to get everything laid out nicely. Now, each of the three components here have been assembled. What I finally need to do is just connect the two arms to the base. And so I'm gonna come over there, I'm gonna check to see if this is still in frame. Might be, we'll see. So over here, I'm going to, actually I should have done this earlier, I'm gonna connect these loops to the feet. On this side, I'm going to connect this loop to this foot, this loop to this foot. There we go. Now I'm going to take the arm that has the retractable cord on the end. You could do the other arm first, it's just this makes things easier. And I'm just going to pull that retractable cord out, right? And I keep pulling it. I'm just going to hook it over here so that that arm keeps itself upright off the ground. Now I'm going to get the other arm here. I'm going to bring it up. Now I'm going to take that same retractable cord and pull it to the end of this one and hook it on. Okay. So, at this point, I really just need to adjust the hammock stand. So the first and most important thing we need to do when we adjust the hammock stand is look down the length of the stand and make sure that both of the arms are plumb when viewed from this perspective. So plumb meaning straight up and down in the direction of gravity. If an arm is leaning to the right, such as that one is over there right now, it's going to mean that when you lay in the hammock stand, it's going to put you over here, which is less stable and less strong. So by getting it all really lined up, it ensures that we hang above that center bar, which is the strongest and most stable point. So right now, looking down the length of this, I can see, it's a little hard to show you on camera, but this arm close to us is really good already. And then the arm farther away is leaning to the right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set up the camera here, and I'm going to go adjust that arm until it's plumb. To do that, I would just adjust the the length of this whoopee sling over here. In this case, I'm going to tighten it. Try not to move the hammock stand. It's very lightweight, so it's hard for me to hold this perfectly in frame because it's 3 pounds, so it just moves around like nothing. So I'm adjusting the length of this, I'm tightening it up, and then I'm looking along the length, and from my perspective right now, this looks pretty good. So I kind of close one eye and I just look down and I make sure everything is nice and lined up. And it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. It just needs to be pretty close. You can see this this ridge line thing over the top too, right? One way to know that everything is right is that when you look at it from this perspective, both of the arms and that ridge line and that center bar are all in a single plane, or a single line really. So the second thing we need to do when we're adjusting the hammock stand is decide how far apart we want the tips of these arms to be. The closer they are, the more deep your hang angle will be, and the farther apart they are, the more shallow your hang angle will be. So this is just based on preference. Now, to make it easier, that ridge line up there is marked, and depending on the hang angle you want, you just adjust it until you see a particular marking. So for example, 3 marks on that means that's going to allow a 30-degree hang angle. 4 marks means it's going to allow a 40-degree hang angle, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to show you a couple of different positions here, just so you can see how you would adjust it from a more shallow hang angle to a deeper hang angle. I'm going to go over and do that right now. So I would start by loosening this whoopee sling here, and I'm going to loosen the other one roughly the same amount. And notice right now this whole thing becomes very floppy when I do this because the retraction mechanism for this top cord is not functioning perfectly. So to take up the extra slack, I'd have to be on that other side over there. So right now I'm just going to give it a quick flick, and that'll help it retract a little bit better. Anyways, so going over to this other side, just gonna, now that I'm on this side, I can just pull that extra slack up and get rid of that looseness. So yeah, on this side, I would just loosen these 2 whoopee slings and even them out. And once again, I'm gonna just take up the slack. And once I do this and I decide how far apart I want these, and they are the distance apart that I want them to be, then I'm just double checking that these arms are still nice and plumb, just like I originally had them. And of course, right now they are. We're looking good. So that's how I would take it from that shallower hang angle to this deeper hang angle. So the final thing I would do is I would pre-tension the whole hammock stand, because there's a lot of stretch involved in this design, and I want it to be stretched before I sit in it. Otherwise, I'm going to end up hitting that center bar right down there, right? Because I'm going to sag down. So I want to get all the sag out of the system before I even set up my hammock. And also it just helps keep this whole thing acting as one unit rather than 3 kind of floppy pieces. So here's how we do that. We go to that little thingy right there. We'll call this a winch, because that's basically what it is. And I'm going to take this. This is a little bit awkward because I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera, but yeah, so I would just turn it, and I would just keep doing this until I went from the green mark that I started at to the red mark. Now, of course, right now you can't see those marks because they aren't there. But yeah, I would just get it pre-tensioned all the way. And what that does is it imitates the tension that a 250-pound user would put when they sat in the hammock. And this way, that tension's already there before that user sits in the hammock. So yeah, I would turn it until I reach that tension, and and then I would just feed this arm through to this little thing here, and that kind of locks it in place. So finally, I'm ready to put my hammock in the hammock stand. The only thing here, we basically just use these daisy chains. The only thing here you need to keep in mind is once we set this up, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how tight should I have this? You know, should I be pulling it like this? You should never do that. That will put a lot more stress on the hammock stand. So what you want to do, you want to get it to a placement where if I take my fist and I push down, I can't quite reach that center bar. And so usually that's where your butt's going to end up, is where your fist presses down, right? So right now this is pretty good, and I would be ready to sit in it. So as a bonus feature that I know hikers and backpackers will appreciate, each of these arms can be used as a hiking staff with an adapter sleeve that will fit on the end and have a carbide tip. This is a great option for those of you looking to be able to bring a freestanding hammock stand on a hike without such a large weight penalty, because this takes the place of your trekking poles or your hiking staff. And compared to many hiking staffs, these are quite light at only about 350 grams each, which helps reduce arm fatigue, especially considering that I can slip my fingers through the daisy chain here and pick up the staff without gripping it, so that reduces hand fatigue. Despite that though, if I need to really put a sudden amount of downforce on it, this daisy chain will, you know, nothing's gonna break. I can put my full body weight into this, and it's very, very strong. And as a side bonus, let's say you were going on a through hike and you didn't want to bring the whole freestanding hammock stand, but you still wanted to make sure that you would always have a place to set up your hammock. You could just bring up one of these arms with the adapter sleeve and, you know, use it as a hiking staff. And then, yeah, just bring a couple ground anchors and you can just anchor this into the ground, and then on the other end you attach to a tree. So if you're somewhere where there's sparse trees, but there are some, you can just bring one of these, anchor it into the ground, and use it that way. This is one of the strength tests I did for this hammock stand. You'll notice at the end here why I refer to its yield strength and not its break strength, because the arm just bends in a very extreme way, but it does not break. I repeated this multiple times and found that the strength was the same each time, and there was no evidence of any permanent damage. As I conclude this video, I really just want to express appreciation for all of the people who have emailed me with words of encouragement since I posted my idea over a year ago. I've been working on this now for almost 2.5 years, pretty much utilizing all of my free time and all of my free headspace just on this. I've been working completely alone. I've had no help. And there have been times where I was just so exhausted that I really wanted to give up. Sometimes I would spend months to design a new prototype, only to put it together and find out it worked horribly. And even once I had nailed down a design that worked, I would then find out it could be improved, which then meant another overhaul. As I've explained to some people, this isn't just one design, it's prototypes within a prototype, and each of those ideas need to be developed independently, but then come together and work as a single organism. So for example, just the retractable cord section on this took me months to figure out, because not only did it need to retract something like 15 feet of cord, but the mechanism to do that needed to fit in something long and narrow as well as being lightweight. On top of that, it needed to pull hard enough to keep the arms stable without slack. And then I needed to be able to use that same cord to pre-tension the hammock stand, so it needed to double as a winch. Meanwhile, all of this needed to remain tangle-free, despite the user taking these tubes apart and putting them back together, sometimes inadvertently twisting them. Even the cord itself was an issue, as I wanted to use pure ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene, which is just Dyneema. But I needed to be able to paint or stain the cord for the hang angle markings, and that material doesn't really accept colors very readily. So I then opted for a polyester sheath with a Dyneema core so I could stain the sheath while retaining the strength of the core. But then I tested this and realized that the polyester sheath caused far too much friction in the retraction system, so I went back to pure Dyneema. However, the issue with coloring it was still there, so I needed to do extensive research and testing to find a dye that would work well enough to stay on the Dyneema despite rubbing and exposure to UV rays. And meanwhile, I ran into clearance issues with the handle of the winch. And all of that was just one piece of this larger puzzle. So I could go on for days talking about similar difficulties I ran into, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how I got so exhausted with the design process. So having the continued encouragement from people online when I would inevitably get to the point of saying, I don't know if this is worth it, was really helpful. And I just want those people to know that I appreciate them. Moving forward, I really feel that all of the pieces are in place now, and all I need to do is polish a few things and work on shoring up the financial part of this, since economy of scale needs to come into play in order for this to make a profit. Nearly all of the pieces used in this are custom made and will continue to be, but even so, ordering one of something is much more expensive than ordering, say, 20 of something. So once I'm confident enough in the refinement of the design, I can order large enough quantities in order to have a sustainable profit margin, hopefully. If you're interested in ordering one of these once they are ready, please email me using info@lumitegear.com. That way I can let you know as soon as they're officially for sale. It's worth noting that the starting retail price is going to be $950 US. Even if you don't plan on buying one, it's always good to hear from new people. So feel free to shoot me an email for any reason. I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone.